Shalom, shalom. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero. In this morning, we're going to take a look at something very fascinating regarding having a live minyan using a live camera. Now, obviously, during this whole entire pandemic, many synagogues, Orthodox and conservative, utilized the Zoom technology or the technology that exists in order to be able to continue having minyanims, and it plays a very important issue in today's Jewish world, especially when we had all of these enclosures taking place. And as you know, I did speak about the issue of a live conversion, live this, live that requires certain requirements according to the Shulchan Aruch and other issues. You can look at it up on my YouTube page under Ways of Israel that I spoke about that, and it is doable. So the question that is brought forward by Rabbi Baruch Davidson of Chabad, which is an incredible article. I recommend you take a look at it at the Chabad page, because he admits that yes, it can be done under certain limited situation. There's some other points I'm going to be mentioning his article, which I find to be very, very illuminating, because it agrees really with a lot of the conservative positions on this matter as well, because the basis of both of them is actually in the sources, the Shulchan Aruch. And I'm going to try to take some time just to briefly go over them, because it's important for us to understand that we need to have a standing on the sources in order to be able to say yay or nay. So he asked the questions, and I'm going to rephrase it because the way he asked the question is not really correct, but let's go forward. It said, is it possible to create a virtual synagogue where everyone will join in prayers online? How about virtual reality? Well, that's the first problem I find. Whenever they use the word virtual, it is as if it is not real, but in fact it is, where you literally feel like you are there in the same room and your fellow in avatar. Well, first of all, that's already changing the face and presence of the person by putting an image that's not their own. Could this be a legitimate replacement for group prayers at the synagogue? Well, that's where he's going to. Can we replace the technological advances with the synagogue? There are two different things altogether, because the synagogue experience is to actually have physical interaction with one another, and that's a unique situation. But the next best thing to it is actually being able to be live and interact, and that means that both has to be able to answer, respond, and show one's face. So these are things that we're going to take a look at. Now, of course, he says prayer via technology could only be considered good for the weekday service. In other words, from right after Shabbat all the way till the beginning of Shabbat. On Shabbat and major Jewish holidays, we refrain from engaging with electric device, or computer use is obviously out. Not necessarily, because there's been certain decisions even by such great poskim as Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, who allowed to a certain degree the use of electricity or items that were not directly involved, like microphones, certain microphones used in the podium. As a matter of fact, there's a couple of synagogues that are Orthodox that use cameras within the main place of the prayer, which would be wonderful for them to do the live feeding during and live interaction. So that is something that is doable, even on Shabbat. Having said this, says the rabbi, where synagogues are places of community where people connect, they learn, they discuss, question, and build relationships, and much of this can be done on the internet and in what he calls metaverse, which is really Facebook. However, the central and primary function of the synagogue is to facilitate communal prayer, with the accompanying of the reading of the Torah, the code of Jewish law, which specifies and requires a minyan of 10 individuals. Now that is mentioned in the Shulchan Aruch, that the 10 must be in the same place. Now, interesting enough, as we read the wording of what it says in the Shulchan Aruch, making referred to the 10, take a look at Sanhedrin 39a, where the idea of express is not exactly what he says. He he interprets this in Sanhedrin 39a to make reference of being a house of 10 instead of a place of 10. And a place is a little bit more ample in understanding that you could have 10 people in the same place and it could be considered a minyan. This is where Zoom has different cameras and you can see their faces live, not recorded, live, and then be part of that minyan there. But we're going to see more details on this because it's very important to understand that it is referring to specifically a way where you can have the presence of the divine in every location live by the gathering of 10. So this is where they base on this whole notion that it has to be physically there. Well, we'll see. The emperor said to Ramban Gamaliel, you say that the divine presence dwells in any place, notice what he uses, in any place where there are 10 adult male Jews. He asked sarcastically, and then he said, how many divine presences are there? Because if you have actually, you can close these 10 men in actual physical dominions, then you have 10 different Shekhinah, which is the point that is being asked by the emperor. How many divine presences are there? Ramban Gamaliel summoned the servants of the emperor and hit him on his neck. Ramban Gamaliel said to him, why did you allow the sun to enter the house of the emperor? The emperor said to him, the sun rests upon all the world. No one can prevent it from shining. And Ramban Gamaliel said to him, and if the sun, which is one of the 10,000 attendants that are before the Holy One, blessed be he, rest upon the whole world, the presence of the Holy One, blessed be he, all the more so rest upon the whole entire world. There is no limitation or barrier physically that can be able to retain the presence of the Shekhinah. So we need to move this conversation into being able to participate in the presence of Shekhinah when we are able to see 10 faces live. This is the point. Now, interesting, Rabbi Davidson is not arguing this point at all. He agrees with this. Can those 10 people be gathered virtually? See, here the word is being played as virtually, like not real. When you understand the technology, you understand it is real, live, everything happening is live time. The interaction is live time. So it's not like this make-believe world of video. This is not what we're talking about. If that be the case, then we have to nullify all forms of video. But we're talking about live, right now live. And apparently, according to his understanding, Rabbi Davidson says, apparently not. Jewish law specifies the constitution of a minyan. Indeed it does. It constitutes the rule of 10 people. And according to the understanding, if there's a physical barrier, it has to be within that physical barrier. Now, like I mentioned to you, there are other sources, and I would definitely recommend you take a look at this because the answer that he gives is not necessarily a monolithic answer, although probably most of the ultra-Orthodox world will take on to this monolithic because there's a lot of benefits in being and gathering together in a community and congregation where you actually see other people there present physically. Now, when it says 10 all in one place, it is not referring necessarily to the physical occasion. It can be implied as it were a space of 10 in one area. That could be virtually, and I say that really bad redundant, alive if you can see 10 people on the same screen, or even, let's go back, you have a minyan at the physical location of the synagogue, and you're inviting others to join in. Those are also counted, and we're going to take a look at how that works in a second. And here we have that these 10 people can be considered valid for the minyan call. And Rabbi Chaim Ovadia makes reference to this in his video, which I recommend you go to his videos on this, and how that works as well. Nevertheless, in a situation where there are 10 and they're outside, but their faces are seen, and this here's the key here, their faces are seen, the Code of Jewish Law states that they may indeed be considered a minyan. So even Rabbi Baruch Davidson admits that if they can be seen, they can be included in the minyan. So you have 5 at the actual physical location, or 3 or 4, and you have the main leader there at the, you might say, the synagogue, and he hooks up a live feed to bring in the additional people for the minyan. The minyan is now formed. Why? Because they can see their faces. The leader can see the face of the other 10, and now we have a minyan. This is, by the way, being done throughout, whether Orthodox or conservative. It doesn't matter. The rule is the same. The only issue, of course, is whether on Shabbat it's allowed or not, and that you have to look at to what is considered electricity, and if in fact it can be done or not. And this becomes an issue of discussion because all of these new rules was brought up during the time after our sages basically ruled upon what is what and defined things as they were. And so till this day, we do have different of opinions in regards to if electricity is permissible or not on Shabbat. Obviously, you have to cook. Obviously, not on Shabbat, obviously, but pre-cooking. And these are things in areas in which we can be able to move and understand things in. So, nevertheless, a situation where there's 10 men outside, but their faces are seen by the others, the Code of Jewish Law states that they may indeed be considered a minyan. One might argue that when using a webcam, it's a virtual reality or space. All members of the quorum of the minyan can indeed see each other's face. But, and here I will honestly say this is not necessarily correct in what he's saying. But from the wording in the Code of Jewish Law, it seems that close physical proximity is actual vital component of the minyan. In other words, you have to be there physically, he says. But the word is not necessarily referring to being there physically, but being in the same space. As it were, the vital component here is in the presence. The clause about their face being is seen as only to accommodate that there is technically a wall in the way, and you have to be able to be seen, you're not to be blocked. So the issue becomes now whether you're seen or not makes a major issue of its proximity. Now, we must also answer the question if a virtual view of someone is considered an actually seeing the person. And here becomes the issue, and I made reference to this in my other video, that seeing a person live is seeing them live. It's not a mirror effect or a reflection of video. In other words, you're seeing them in real time. They're there. They move their finger, they move their hands, and they're live. You can interact with the other person. And this becomes the issue, you may say, the caveat as to why there's a difference of opinions between some Jewish groups and others. So we must question if it can be seen in real time. It is therefore, even though it's transmitted electronically, it is transmitted in speed of light. It's not reflected, it's live. And here is where the issue becomes in many areas, including issues of, I call live conversion, where your bed din is met and you have other people on the other side as well, and they come together to be able to meet these requirements, and it's kosher. But you have those who basically, you have the rabbis still in the old system that you can't do anything that technology enables us to make it better. You could see better. As a matter of fact, this was an issue when I was at a wedding and I was doing a video cameraing of the actual the challah, the groom were putting the ring on the finger of his wife or his wife to be, and the Orthodox Hasidic rabbi said, no, you have to see with your own eyes. And I'm saying to myself, wait a minute, I see better with the camera than I can with my own physical eyes. I didn't have my glasses on. So does that mean we're going to nullify every single person who doesn't have their own glasses on? And the glass is actually an amplification because our eyes become weak after age. So it doesn't make sense, to be honest with you. It just completely goes contrary to logic, goes contrary to what we're supposed to do is to be able to see better, you put on glasses. So we have to nullify all of those witnesses that put on glasses because they're amplifying their view. So it is this type of narishkeit that basically turns people off. Keep in mind, if glasses helps to better see what we're seeing, how much more so even live cameras, but you can focus on areas that you want to focus on with your eyes. Same thing with live transmission of a minyan taking place in any community. If they transmit it live, you are seeing live time. Even the Torah reading. So there's a lot of things that becomes inclusive, but it becomes an issue of how we define this medium. They're using words like webcam, it's like you're recording, or virtual, like it's pretend. No, it's live. It's right there. You can stop a person talking, the main speaker, and interrupt live. You can't do that on recording. You can't edit. It's live. So that becomes another issue there. So we looked at Sanhedrin 39a. We see what we saw. And there's another reason why basically they do this, and it's based on the Shulchan Aruch, Orach Chaim 55. All of the 10 need to be in one place. Now some will read this as Kol Sha'asara Bimakom, one place. It doesn't refer necessarily as a physical place, but a place. A place, a makom, has a very ample and wide understanding. So you have to have 10 people in a place. It would be the same thing as a space, an area. Of course, back then, when they were writing, they were talking about a physical location. But in today's technology, a physical location could be 10 faces on a camera. There is a physical makom, a beit as you are, a house. So I don't see eye to eye with the article, but nevertheless, the fact that even Chabad admits it can be done is a big giveaway. So we have here 10 need to be in one place, and prayer leaders with them, and one who stands inside the doorway, in the area of the doorway, that is from the door stop and outward, meaning the area that when you close the door at that place of the inner lip of thickness of the door, it is like he's outside. So now what we have here is a problem. We read in the Orach Chaim 55, 13 and 14, one who stands behind the synagogue, and in between them is a window, even if it's several stories high, or even if it's not 4 tefachims wide, and his face is seen by them. By them, a window. Keep in mind, these people perhaps are outside, but they see them. He joins with them for the 10. In other words, here we have that in fact, if they can see them, they are included in the minyan. If a few of them are inside and a few of them are outside, and the prayer leader's in the middle of the doorway, he joins them together for a minyan. So here we have 5 people at shul, 5 people on camera. Can we have a minyan? Yes, you can. You put the 5 people on the camera, the other 5 are already here sitting. We now have a minyan. Now you can say the whole entire thing. The whole entire thing, including that. Now, I'm going to take a look at the other areas of Shabbat, Yom Tov, and that has been already discussed on the issue of electricity. If the electricity is permitted or not permitted on Shabbat or Yom Tov, it will also be applied to this same notion of live feed, not recorded feed. This is completely different altogether. I hope this has helped answer some of your questions. There's a lot of good information where it could be done, and yes, a wall where the window of the camera can be seen the other side, those can be counted as well. So now we have a way in which if another close-in takes place, we can still fulfill our mitzvah of the minyan, of even saying Kaddish, of even hearing the Torah being read from the leader in his minyan count. So all of this becomes a very new dynamic. So to answer Rabbi Davidson's questions, can there be a medium where it creates an actual live synagogue where everyone can join online, live? The answer to that, my opinion, according to what I read and the different opinions that exist, is yes. And there's no reason why we should not do so when you have the limitations of distance, of learning. This brings a whole new light, a new opportunity in the Jewish world where we can all join together in a live transmission from the wall of the Kotel, as they're saying it. Of course, now you have other issues, time zones and all of that, which becomes a big discussion in that alone. But it can be done. So someone on the East Coast can be able to have a live transmission, and those on the East Coast be able to, no problem, participate in that. The question becomes is how many people can you bring on the space in order to be included? That's an issue for the technological world to answer. Can you put 100 people? Can you put 1,000 people? It's an incredible opportunity, an incredible time that we're living in which now rabbis are having to ask these questions and deal with these issues. So I see this as a good thing, not a bad thing. We should not despise that. How many times we try to go to shul, we don't want to see a certain gentleman there, and yet we want to be able to serve God. Obviously, we need to take whatever we have issues with that person there. But it brings a whole entire different dimension to achdut. True spiritual achdut, online, live, not virtual necessarily, but live. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero with the Ways of Israel, and join us. Join us on the Ways of Israel. Be a part of the group that we have there. That we have, by and large, virtual. We haven't done any live minions yet. Hopefully, we get the technological aspects going, getting the equipments and so forth going. We may be able to then go into that route. Please contact me, Rabbi Otero, your opinions right below. And I want to just wish you a Shabbat Shalom Mevorach.